and Daily Ledger contributor Kimberly Dvorak. Kimberly, you know, we're coming up 1 month from now is the 2-year anniversary of the attack on Benghazi, and of course the death of the ambassador there, and 3 other Americans, I should say. And this whole notion of the video that was put out 2 years ago as mis and disinformation, and you look back on it now with what we know, it was criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at you look back at Benghazi, I think that some of the lessons we've learned and some of the stories that are not reported about this, one being the fact that this wasn't necessarily a traditional terrorist attack. This was a retaliation attack by the militia in Libya because the Obama administration and the CIA did a little drone strike over in Pakistan and took out the Libyan #2 al-Qaeda guy. He was the highest, elected guy ever to make it out. And they took offense to the fact that, he was killed. This was a retaliation. You couple that with the fact that we trained a lot of these militia people and terrorists who are now over in the Middle East, and we supplied weapons to them through Benghazi. We need to dispel the myth that we were not trafficking weapons through Benghazi. There have been multiple reports by the New York Times and as well as other organizations, news organizations, that have completely dispelled that. So when you put all of those facts out there, you see that there are going to be some ramifications or some consequences. That's what we're seeing in Iraq and Syria right now, are the consequences for our actions prior in Libya.
But in Benghazi, clearly it was a well-planned and coordinated, sustained attack. And one more thing, Ambassador Stevens, that was not his normal place of business. Was he in some way lured there? Why was he there in Benghazi, a hellhole?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have to remember too that the attack was it unfolded with the use of locals. So the locals knew the lay of the land. How did they know exactly where the CIA annex was? That was farther away from the mission. So, and then there was also reports from Paula Broadwell, Petraeus's mistress, actually, who said that there was a prison there as well. They were using it as quite possibly to go in and interrogate, whoever they picked up off the battlefield. So leaving that aside, though, you look at the situation, and you have to say that there are consequences for this. And you're right, Stevens did do his business in Tripoli, and on this particular day, September 11th, he was lured to Benghazi by the Turkish consul. And that was the last person he really spoke to alive.
Seems like a crazy move. I mean, you look back on obvious 2020 hindsight, the ambassador of a country that's going through a revolution. There are guns and bullets flying everywhere. Why would he do something like that? But be that as it may, we fast forward to today, and we have the situation in Iraq with the terrorists taking over northern Iraq, and you have Obama. And you know that the situation in Benghazi probably played a role on his decision-making here. I mean, he was basically painted into a quarter in Iraq because there are Americans still there, and the ISIS or ISIL or Islamic State, whatever you want to call them, forces were bearing down on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the president necessarily had any choice but to go in and at least help the plight of the Yazidis that are up on Mount Sinjar. I mean, there's a lot of really catastrophe. And, it's a disaster for those people up there. I mean, they're being slaughtered, sold into slavery, the females. I mean, it's something, and the pictures are on TV, so the American people are upset about that. But, I mean, when you look at the president's overall policy on this, he wanted to, campaign getting out of the wars and whatnot. But what we're seeing with the growth of ISIS, and I'll guarantee you that there are troops there on the ground that are members of the terrorist organization that have U.S. weapons that they got through Libya. There is a guarantee of that they're fighting right now with our weapons.
Well, there's no doubt. We gave it to them in Syria, right? But what about the threat here domestically? Is there a nexus between what's going on there and the possibility of some sort of attack here through our wide open southern border?
Yeah, and let me point this out as well. The reason why we have a military is national security. This is the right war to have. The United States, President Obama should go in and get rid of the ISIS group in northern Syria and northern Iraq.
I agree.
This is the war we should be having, but because we've done all of these other, little wars in Libya and they've gone bad, the American people don't understand that our southern borders are absolutely wide open. And last weekend we had a former Obama counterterrorism official say on the record, Mr. Leiter said, hey, we're worried about these guys going over there, getting training, and it's really easy to cross the border here to the south. And they're and they have the capability to let off IED attacks. And in fact, last week, we did hear reports, and we're looking into it now, we did hear reports that an IED has been brought across in Texas, and the person who was arrested is now in custody. So we know this is happening.
Well, that's a story we want to follow up on for sure. And to think that the terrorists aren't paying attention to what's happening on our southern border, you got to be completely naive.
Yeah.
Kimberly, thanks.
Thank you.